Welcome to Reddit Aliens. What's the creepiest thing that's ever happened to you? Posted one day ago. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I was changing in my room when I was 16 and saw a flash in my window. Thought nothing of it until I realized it wasn't raining. A week or so later, I woke up to the unmistakable sound of breathing at my window. When I called out, I could hear them running and jumping over my gate. Thought maybe I was just crazy, until my mom confirmed she'd also heard weird noises from the backyard. We moved a month later. To this day, I'm not sure who it was. I was walking in the dark side of a side street in Austin, Texas. A homeless woman walked up behind me. I didn't see her coming and started whispering in a very low voice, "I want to scratch your back. I want to scratch your back. Scratch, scratch, scratch." And then suddenly touched the back of my neck. Ugh. I almost threw myself into traffic to get away from her. If faced with the same circumstance, would you react any different? I worked as a park ranger for a few summers. It was a great job, but the downside was dealing with the public. I have tons of crazy stories, but only one extremely creepy story. I was scheduled to close the park one night with another girl. The park opened at dawn and closed at dusk. The closing duties were to drive around and make sure everyone was out of the park, then close the gates. You had to make sure everyone was out or else they would get locked inside. Kristen and I got into a truck together to check the day-use picnic area, both campgrounds and all bathrooms. When we left the upper lot, there were no cars in the parking lot of the ranger station. Important later. We cruised around, checked all areas, all was good. So we drove back up to the gate and ranger station to close up. I got out to close the gate and jumped back into the truck. Kristen pointed out that while we were gone, a Jeep had parked in the parking lot. We thought this was super weird since we hadn't seen anyone park there earlier, but whatever. We parked the truck a couple of spots away from the Jeep and got out. We figured we'd just tell the person to leave and then we could go home. As we approached the vehicle, we could barely see someone sitting in the driver's seat. We had dim street lamps, so we knew someone was in there. I waved, got no response, no movement. Kristen knocked on the window. The person didn't respond. We both started feeling like something was wrong. I got chills standing there and we both stepped away from the Jeep, alarmed at the lack of response. We both decided to go get our boss, who lived across the street, on site. We weren't supposed to bother him at night, but this was too weird. He got his shoes on and walked over with us. As we were crossing the street, we saw the door to the Jeep slowly open. Then all three of us saw a figure creep out of the vehicle and crawl underneath. All we saw was a shadow, since there wasn't a lot of light. All of us were scared shitless. It was something out of a horror movie. Kristen got on the phone with the police while my boss and I slowly approached the vehicle. My boss told the person they needed to leave and that we were calling the cops. We could see someone sitting under the lifted Jeep near the front tires. The person wasn't moving or responding. Once the police showed up, they were visibly freaked out too. They had guns drawn and everything. It turned out to be some person tripping on meth. We had no idea why they showed up at the park or what they were doing there, but the cops did find drugs and a loaded gun in the vehicle. After that night, my boss changed all policies regarding closing duties. He added extra closers and we had to carry mace. It was truly terrifying to witness someone creep out of their car and scramble like an animal underneath. It was like she was possessed. I wasn't even aware of the creepiest thing that ever happened to me. My mother walked in on my stepfather aiming a rifle at me and my brother as we jumped on a trampoline. I learned about this a decade later. Lived with the man for years, never suspecting a thing. Was trying to fall asleep on a Greyhound bus ride when some random person walked by and groped me. I was stunned and didn't know how to react. I was 15 at the time. The guy who did it watched me the entire bus ride. I've never been so uncomfortable. I'm 32 now, and I've never been able to sleep on public transit since. Not planes, buses, not even car rides. I was 16 and living in Chicago in the infamous South Shore neighborhood. We lived in a basement apartment, aka garden apartment. My mom was sick and was begging me to go to the store a block away to get Arizona iced tea for her. She gave me the money and I left no problems. The owner of the store knew me and my mom and would watch out for me. Plus, I knew how to handle myself if things got violent. Well, this man, I'm guessing somewhere between 25 and 30, begins following me at the corner of my house. I try to brush it off and hurry to the store. He comes in and follows me throughout the aisles. Eventually, as I'm grabbing the drink from the fridge, he offers to buy it for me. I refuse, telling him I can do it on my own. He doubles down and offers me $60 in food stamps on the condition I have sex with him in this car outside. If you don't know street currency, that's $30 cash. I refuse and tell him I'm only 16 years old, thinking it would scare him off. Then he offers me $100 in food stamps. I tell him there's no way and make sure to chat up the store owner and ask him to call my mom for me to tell her I got what she wanted. That was this guy would know the owner knew me and that someone was home with me. Rushed home and told my mom about the interaction, and she didn't send me out alone anymore. Should be the end, right? Well, jump to a week later. I'm in bed and burning hot. Normally I'd take off my clothes and head back to bed, but this time something felt off. I turn on the bedside lamp and I see the same man lying on his side to look through the tiny basement windows right at me. He was jerking himself off. I screamed and my mom ran into my room as he was getting up to run off. Thankfully, my mom was fed up with the place anyways, and we moved the next week into a hotel while we searched for a new apartment. Definitely scary. It was the middle of the night and I was getting ready for bed in my bathroom when I heard something crazy. I heard the howling of a coyote inside my house. We lived in the country, so coyotes were common, but never inside. I froze up in fear and forced myself to peer around the corner to see over the stairway. My cat was standing in front of the window, mimicking the howl of a coyote. I could not believe what I was hearing. When he saw me watching him, he stopped. He's never made that sound ever again, and honestly, it's terrifying that cats are capable of things like this. But yeah, I was scared to death. I thought there was a coyote in my house.
An innocent plea for help or something more sinister? What do you think?
One night, at around 10 or 11 p.m., I was in the kitchen getting a late-night snack when suddenly the doorbell rang. I answered it, and this panicked woman was there telling me how she had had a fight with her mom and asked me to call a taxi for her at the top of the road and she'd wait there for it. After the taxi had been called and she left, I got a call from the taxi company to say that the driver hadn't seen anyone. I then saw the woman ringing my neighbor's doorbell and asking the same of them. To this day, I still have no idea what the hell was happening or what her goal could possibly have been. Creepiest thing that has happened to my roommate happened while I was asleep. He was coming back to our room to go to bed when he heard me yell something like, "Please no, stop," from the other side of the door, and then silence, and then footsteps approaching the door. He bolted, was almost out the door when he realized I was just getting up to pee. I apparently woke myself up sleep talking. He legitimately thought I'd been murdered and was trying to escape. I still sleep talk all the time apparently. The creepiest thing I said to my wife in the middle of the night unprompted was, "Who's whispering? Oh no." When I was 8 years old, my mom got hit by a 15-year-old joyriding and running a red light, 85 miles per hour right into her driver's side door. 10 months in the hospital, 2 years until she could use her hands again, 5 years until she could walk again. A month or two into her hospital stay, her lottery number hit for 6 or 9 million, I can't remember. The numbers made from my siblings' birthdays that she played every week. She saw it on TV, but saved the newspaper clipping of them winning, a shrine to remind her of what could have been. It's all she would talk about when I visited her. She used to always smile, laugh, embrace, but she changed. Even the way she talked about the world just got darker, angrier. It's like her soul died and nobody was home. Fake smiles, distant stares, no more hugs. Gone. I feel like this is less creepy and more scary, dangerous. I was in bed in my apartment with a girl I started dating. I hear gunshots, incredibly loud, very close. I tell her to get away from the window and roll out of bed, completely naked, grabbing my rifle and laid down below the window, like I'm going to engage in a shootout or something. I'm an idiot. Time passes, and I see the light from 2 flashlights against the window. Not sure if it's police or someone else. I still waited, still naked, listening. Eventually, I can tell it's the police. I wrap myself in a blanket and go out to the balcony to talk to them. They told me the shots hit the wall maybe a foot away from going through my window. My bed wasn't right next to the window, so not really dangerous, but creepy. Another night, same complex, I was going for a jog around the outside of the complex and I was coming around the front entrance. The complex had one of those islands out front where there's an area with a patch of grass, the sign for the complex, some bushes, and a light post. It's dark, and the light is on and only illuminating the area right below it. As I'm coming around the front, I see a dark silhouette of a man shambling down the street like a zombie toward the light post and toward me, hunched, weirdly, limping, dragging his leg kinda. My instinct is to run, but before I do, I see him step into the light, and it's just a black guy with a puffy coat on that's hanging off his shoulder around his back with no shirt underneath. Obviously not a zombie, but looked cracked out of his head. So that makes me panic even more. I feel the impulse to break out into a full sprint, but then in the back of my mind, I didn't want to look racist. Like, oh no, black guy, run. Maybe he'll get offended. Also, I was exhausted from the sun. So I still sprinted, but tried to make it look like I was still exercising, like keeping good pace and posture, good arm movement, etc. I took the side door instead of the main gate. The door is broken and won't lock. I hear the door close behind me, and then hear it open a moment later. He's right behind me. Then I just full-on panic, run up 2 flights of stairs into my apartment. Again, I'm not a smart man. This was years ago, but something about the moment scared the hell out of me, and I thought I'd share. When I was a little girl, I was getting ready for school one day early in the morning. I was really foggy outside and the house was empty. It was so surreal and something felt wrong. So I went out into our pasture to find my parents. I grew up on a farm, and I remember seeing one of our goats lying on the ground through the fog. I found my dad through the fog and ran up behind him. I remember him seeming really stressed and mad at what I thought was me. My mom found the 2 of us and ran me inside the house. She told me to not go outside again, and later said that the reason they were outside was because some of our neighbors' dogs snuck over to our property and were attacking our goats, killing a few. Our dogs were never violent, so they just barked at the neighbors' dogs instead of attacking them. Apparently, the reason my dad was so stressed was because he was trying to track down the neighbors' dogs, was on high alert, had a loaded gun, and I ran up behind him like an idiot and was running around a pasture unattended with 2 violent dogs. This definitely isn't the scariest story on this post, but it kind of concerns me how dangerous that situation was. When my brother and I were about 7 years old, we found a pair of scissors in the kitchen drawer and thought it wouldn't be a bad idea to cut the hedges out the front with them. Well, aware now that it wasn't a great idea. Nevertheless, our mother wasn't aware we were doing this, and whilst being outside and cutting hedges, we were questioned by a grown male in a silver SUV. He asked us if we needed help with the hedges and if our parents were home. Before we clearly got an answer out, he started opening his door. We both went inside to tell our mother there was a man out front asking to help out. She came out with us and he was gone. Thought nothing about it. About a few weeks went by, and the car was on the news and had been seen attempting to abduct kids from the local school. Now that I'm 22, it creeps me out a bit. It wasn't me it happened to, however, I did witness it. I was about 11 at the time, and we lived in a house that had strange things happen all the time. Nothing like crazy. Little things like bumps in the night and stuff being where you didn't leave it. I remember it was around Halloween. We were buying stuff for a party at the end of the month, and my mom bought some rubber mask. My little brother grabbed one, and it was a typical red devil mask. We had an attic and we always kept it closed. The day my brother, who was 2 or 3 at the time, was running around with the mask on. He was laughing and stuff, and out of nowhere, he just goes silent. My mom and I get concerned because he was quiet for a few minutes, and we see him in the hallway, staring straight up at the open attic. My mom calls out to him and he doesn't respond or acknowledge her. It was like he was in a trance. My mom pulls him away from the attic's opening, and he starts laughing again like nothing happened. What made it more creepy was he had tears in his eyes when we took the mask off.
I think it's time this woman looks for a full-service gas station.
I've, female 22, been followed out by the gas attendant who cornered me to ask me out, then got mad when I said no, only backed off when I lied and said we were engaged. I've recently been pumping gas, and an older man has walked up and said I was doing it wrong and wrapped his arms around me, think first date mini golfing type position, to show me how to pump gas, also known as instead of putting the stopper on the handle to hold it the whole time. I froze in fear before I told him to back off and that I was COVID positive. He backed off. I hate pumping gas. I used to work in retail in a clothing store, and one day I was serving, but I'd forgotten my name badge, so I've been lent one by a friend who was finishing their shift. A girl I was serving was being overly friendly, didn't really think much of it and left it at that. Went on my break a few hours later and had a Facebook friend request from the girl and about 15 message requests which started at "Hi" and finished at asking why I was ignoring her, etc., and whether or not she needed to come back to the store and speak to me properly. Still freaks me out to this day that she found me on Facebook with no mutual friends and my place of work wasn't listed, which is why I now don't have Facebook. Extremely creepy fake cop road rage encounter. This was 2010 in rural Pennsylvania. After an incident on the road, 2 guys in a truck blocked me into a parking spot and turned on a siren and lights. The driver came up to my window and started screaming at me about how he is a police officer and Army Ranger or something. He made a motion to his hip, implying he had a gun, and waved a set of handcuffs in my window, saying I was going to be detained. I decided to just stay in my car and call police. Luckily, they eventually left, and I found out later the guy had a habit of using his fake siren and police lights to pull over women, occasionally assaulting them. He even scammed some folks by giving them scuba lessons, having them pay up front, then just bouncing while they were 30 feet underwater. Dude was a creep, and I would hate to know what would have happened if I had gotten out of the car.